بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Safina Society Nothing But Facts live stream on a gorgeous Wednesday. It's very crisp out. You need to have your jacket or your parka because it's very crisp out here in the great state of New Jersey, filming on from the studio of the third floor of La Cocina Soup Kitchen. If you want to support the Soup Kitchen here, it's one of our, I believe, the best dawah initiatives in New Jersey, maybe even the Northeast coast, because we feed now 100 people a week on our way to our goal before 2030. By 2030, 7 dinners a week, every single day of the year. Christmas, Eid, Milad al-Rasul, okay, alleged Milad of Sayyidina Isa, which we don't even know if that's even correct, probably not. Okay, and we don't celebrate Christmas anyway. But even if it's on Christmas, Thanksgiving, Halloween, whatever it is, rain, shine, snow, sleet, okay, 7 meals, a dinner every day. We want basically kids to say, if you lived in New Brunswick at this in these years, you're never worried about dinner. I'm telling you, people here worry about dinner. Okay, they stay in after school programs for the snacks. It's terrible. So that's where we are. We're on the third floor of the soup kitchen. That's where the studio is. But today we're back to back Bradford. We have a second guest from Bradford. Last stream, we had Muhammad Yasir al-Hanafi. And today we have our own very own Shaykh Mahdi, leader of the Arkview Arabic program. Bring on our Shaykh. Bismillah. Shaykh Mahdi, how are you? Good to see you again. First of all, how are your Arabic students from Arkview?
They're doing very well, mashallah. They're doing very well. I would say I've been pleasantly surprised. I think we brought 60 in number. I haven't been able to check for a few days. We've got 60 in number.
Mashallah.
Spread over 3 levels, beginner, intermediate, advanced. And we've got a really diverse bunch, I would say, mashallah, like from different, not just from New Jersey, but from different parts of the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people spread out over the East Coast of the United States, like New York, North Carolina.
Allahu Akbar.
And then people also in Canada. So we've got people from Toronto and Montreal. Then there's a few people from the UK. I've got a few people from India, I think Dubai, Ivory Coast, Australia. It's really, really spread out, mashallah. And I'm noticing as time goes on, alhamdulillah, that because I'm for 14 weeks in now, so I'm very familiar with the students, mashallah. I'm very familiar with the students.
That's great.
And it's good to see. Like sometimes I'm noticing in my classes, I'm like, wow, I've got a really strong class now. I'm all these people, and these are all people I've seen really perform and really answer the question with proficiency, and they're confident.
That's amazing.
And that's great to see. And I get really great questions. So like people are not. So I hate teaching it, and it feels like a radio broadcast.
Yeah,
it's like radio silence. No one's saying anything.
Yeah.
So I like to have a bit of rowdiness in the class. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a different styles. I noticed, like, if you ever watch like durus from places like Sham, it's very quiet.
Yeah.
And all the Q&As at the end, whereas like in Egypt, it's rowdy.
It's right.
Students just get in there and the interview. I like that. I prefer that style. I get nervous, to be honest with you. I get nervous if it's really quiet, because I'm like, are people listening to me? Can they understand what I'm saying? So when people just butt in and say, listen, I need to know, I don't understand what that means, or can you explain this, or why is there Kesser here but Fatah here?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's like, okay, great.
I'm definitely into that, because every reaction is a piece of information I'm using to understand if the student's learning, or if they're grasping anything, or what's on their mind. I need to know that, because otherwise you have no clue if you're just talking to the wall. Like, you don't know if it's going over their head, in one ear, out the other. So you got to have that engagement and that interaction.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So that's what I'm, and that is, again, one of the challenges with online, right? Because you can't. I mean, I've been also a face-to-face teacher for a long time, 20 years or something like that. And yes, obviously, when you're in the class, you can see people, you can read body language, you can read faces, and so on and so forth, facial expressions. It's like with Zoom, you're kind of relying on, like, I mean, some people might have the camera on, but you're relying on emojis, you're relying on, LOL,
Yep. Yep.
these kind of things.
Yep.
But alhamdulillah, we're getting there, and we're really trying to, I think, break the ice and try to. I really try not to have what you would call what they call in the business world power distance, right? I don't want to be that dude way up there that's kind of inaccessible, and you just have to, I speak ex cathedra on everything I say. She just accept it, and I want it to be more of a fraternal atmosphere, like I'm just a big brother, and I'm here to help you, and whatever it is, don't be shy to ask. So people send me questions. So people have questions in class. They send me questions outside of class. Send me questions on WhatsApp, and that's to encourage them, between classes, obviously during the week, to be keeping up with the work. Because I've always said that to them. Like one of the things we said in like the week 1 is, like, again, the hadith, adwamuha when qalla, right? Most beloved actions to Allah are those that are persistent and longer lasting. Even if it's small. So, if you just try to set aside whatever it is you can do, 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, and keep it up. Don't try to, cram it all in before the review session. Spread it out. So alhamdulillah, that's a really good thing to see, that students are doing that. They're taking advantage of it.
That's great. So it's a little beehive. And that's really what we're going for, because really at the core and the crux of our belief system is that about life. You live this life, spending it between ilm, suluk, spiritual development, and da'wah. And you don't worry about the creation. You just busy yourself with that. And these beehives are so important. They're so critical, right, in getting there and drawing near to Allah. These beehives of knowledge and these beehives of interacting with you. And that's what the whole purpose of Arkview is, to create an interaction. The engagement is 10 times more than the lecture, right? The fact that someone asked a question, got it answered, he'll remember that answer forever. Whereas 100 things could have been said in a lecture, and he may retain 5 of those things, right? And forget them later. But the fact that something came from an interaction, okay, it always sticks in your mind. And that's why interaction is so important. And you do something or gain a piece of knowledge through a two-way street, you always remember it, right? But you gain a piece of knowledge because somebody just said it to you, not always. And that's the secret here. So for those listening, we will be opening up applications soon, okay, for Arkview, for Arabic, for you to start studying Arabic, learning Arabic, and your shepherd who will guide you to your destination, okay, is Shaykh Mahdi Locke. Okay? And here's the other thing. Somebody who learned Arabic from scratch, Shaykh Mahdi Locke learned Arabic from scratch, is actually the best person to teach Arabic because he knows where you're coming from. Whereas the Arabic speaker, maybe he has some qualities, but he never understood not knowing Arabic, right? So why converts are the best people to lead converts for the same reason. And someone who learned Arabic from scratch is the best shepherd for you to take you to your destination. Now, so that's Arabic, and you could sign up. We openly open up the registration for a small window of time. I mean, you could sign up now, and then you'll be placed. But we're also talking about your website. Your blog post here. Very important blog post. People have been losing sleep. They haven't been eating. They haven't been able to function normally because they are glued 24/7, right, to the Israel news, right, 24/7, and this crisis has created Twitter addicts. I'm telling you, people addicted to Twitter, right? Just because they're seeing, what's going on, they have to know what's going on, okay, and that's really the place of cutting edge news is Twitter. Okay, corporate media is only going to give you what their corporate, sponsors want them to say. You have a blog post here that is about faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. the secret behind its necessity. And a lot of the issues that we have related to this anxiety people have towards Philistine is disconnecting Allah from the picture. That's what causes all the problems. When Allah is not the only actor, doer, I should say, in your worldview, you will be very stressed. You're stressed because your beliefs are incorrect. That's why you're stressed. So why don't you lead the way here and talk to us on the secret behind the necessity of faith in Allah as it links and is connected to people's anxiety and nervousness regarding the crisis, this crisis, and really any crisis.
Okay. So this this blog post, which is on the Safina Society blogs, it starts with Imam, because this is a book. The book is called, the overall book is called Min Asrar al-Manhaj al-Rabbani, right? Some Secrets of the Divine Approach. It's a book by Imam Muhammad Siran al-Bulti, a book he wrote a long time ago, actually. And so that's the first chapter. What's on the blog is the very, very first chapter, because that's the most important one. It's the most important secret, because the whole book is about secrets as to why does Allah do certain things and why are certain things legislated. And he starts off with Surah Nisa, the fourth chapter, verse 170, where Allah addresses all of mankind. And Allah says, right? O people, the messengers come to you with truth from your Lord. Right? So believe, and that's better for you, right? Now, what he's getting at here is that belief in Allah is beneficial for you, right? It doesn't benefit Allah. It doesn't benefit Allah if we believe. It benefits you if you believe. And what he explains in the ayah is he says that human beings by their nature differ in terms of their capacity. So human beings, some are stronger, some are poorer, some are wealthier, some are smarter, some are less intelligent, and so on and so forth. And he says, now, if people ignore their slavehood to Allah and do not acknowledge their slavehood to Allah, the natural outcome of that is you will get slave masters and enslaved. That's just the inevitable outcome of that, right? The people who are stronger and wealthier, more intelligent, whatever, they will become slave masters, and everyone else will be enslaved. So now what people fail to remember here, or some people, I think a lot of people overlook this fact, is that we look at Fir'aun, right? We look at Fir'aun and we say, okay, well, there's an obvious case of someone who doesn't acknowledge his slavehood to Allah. And indeed, he says in Surah Al-Nazi'at, the 7th chapter, verse 24, "Ana rabbukum al-a'la," I am your Lord Most High. So he sees himself at a tyrant. So because he doesn't see himself as Allah's slave, there's nothing hindering him, there's nothing blocking him from enslaving and tyrannizing and brutalizing other people. But the flip side that people also forget, and this is what Imam al-Bulti says in this chapter, is he says that the enslaved are in that situation because they don't acknowledge their slavehood to Allah. Because if you acknowledge your slavehood to Allah, you will not allow yourself to be enslaved by someone else.
Yep.
It's a symbiotic relationship. And I was talking about this with some of my Arabic students just last weekend, because we were talking about what was it? We're talking about harf al-illa when you're doing the film with Zoom, right? Or fil amr. Right, and one of the things that's always stood out to me for a long time, if you read in Surah Al-Baqarah the story of Musa alayhi salam and the children of Israel, again, it's kind of relevant, isn't it? I think it's like between ayahs 60 and 70, there's about 4 instances where the children of Israel, where they ask Musa alayhi salam to make dua to Allah, but each time they say, "Fad'u lana rabbak."
Subhanallah.
They never say Rabbana. They say, call on your Lord for us.
What's wrong with these people?
Well, they never say call on our Lord, right? So that's telling us, right? This is the benefit of the beautiful things about knowing the Arabic language and noticing the pronouns being used. You're like, wait a second, they never acknowledged Allah's lordship over them. They never acknowledged that they were Allah's slaves, and that's why they were in that situation with Fir'aun.
Unreal. That's that's an amazing, just that one suffix pronoun.
Yeah. Right, and it's 4 times.
So true.
Like I-61. Yeah. So you put that all together, and then you realize, yeah, well, that's why they worship the golden calf. right? That's why they worship the calf, right? And which again takes us back to like the broader wisdom here. This is something that Imam Ghazali says in the Ahad al-Madin. It's in his bab of Kitab al-Tawhid wa Tawakkul, where he says that it's something along the lines of, he said, before you get rid of the dog in the backyard, you have to get rid of the dog in the house. Before you get rid of the dog in the house, you have to get rid of the dog in the heart.
Wow.
And what he's getting at is it's the internal enemy, right? Mm-hmm. It's the internal enemy. So what you learn from that whole story is that Fir'aun was an external enemy, but he's there because of an internal enemy.
Subhanallah.
And you can get rid of the external enemy, which is Fir'aun, but the internal enemy is still there. Mm-hmm. The internal enemy. I think there's a story. One of my teachers told me there's a story about Ali ibn Abi Talib, when he was the Khalifa, and someone from the children of Israel tried to make fun of him and say, your prophet's only been dead for 30 such years, and look at all the fitna you have in your time, blah blah blah. And Ali's response was, well, your people's feet were still wet from crossing the Red Sea, and you were worshiping a golden calf, and your prophet was with you. your prophet was alive and with you.
Your feet were wet, subhanallah. Your clothes hadn't even dried off.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, again, so that's showing the internal state. So when we think about this idea, so you when you don't acknowledge you're a slave to Allah, that's when these problems happen, right? So we can't deal with external enemies. So how do we relate this to our situation? We have to relate this to our situation this is something that I've been doing a lot recently with people, because I'm still been doing lectures and stuff here. It talks about depression, anxiety book, the Rise Husband and Wife book. And you're starting to see how the fact that really we have to think now as a Muslim community, we really have to start thinking about oppression amongst our own ranks, right? Yep. We really have to start thinking about, who are we oppressing, right? Because again, an-nasu ad-din mulukihim, the Messenger of Allah said, people are upon the religion of the rulers. Allah, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam also said in the hadith, that's Sahih, in the Sahih al-Jami of Imam al-Suyuti, kama takuni wala alaykum, as you are, you will be ruled over. We really have to take these things on board and look at rectifying ourselves. So while I understand it's pretty understandable to be keeping on top of the news and seeing what's happening, don't let that distract you, or I would say let these events push you towards Allah. Let those events push you towards Allah. There's a brother, he's on speaking of brothers on Twitter, there's a brother on Twitter, his name's Gharib Faqir, and he keeps himself very Gharib, like no one knows who he is. But he does nice little clips. He does nice little translation clips on Twitter, and he found one. He doesn't buy Imam Sharawi, Imam Bulti, and a few other people, a few other sheikhs. And Imam Bulti there's one khutbah where he talked about like what is the answer when you're in this deep type of fitna, and he said in this day, when especially in this time of crisis, like yes, we have Qunut al-Nazila, but he said never ever underestimate what he called Siham al-Ashar,
subhanallah,
right? The arrows of the pre-dawn hours, right? And this again is referring to Surah Al-Dhariyat, the 51st chapter, ayah 18, right? Right? In the pre-dawn hours they seek forgiveness. So if you mentioned people staying up late watching stuff on Twitter, pray at that time. Seriously, pray at that time. Pray tahajjud, pray Salat al-Hajjah, and make dua for people. And there is an effect. I think also people need to step back and see the bigger picture, because one of the things, because again, we tie this back to the Quran, and we can tie this back to people feeling anxious and depressed about events. There's a beautiful ayah, which we have so many beautiful ayat already, but it was one, but relevant here is there's an ayah in Surah Al-Luqman. It's the 31st chapter, verse 20, where Allah says, وَأَسْبَغَ عَلَيْكُمْ نِعْمَهُ ظَاهِرَةً وَبَاطِنًا. Like Allah showers His blessings upon you, outwardly and inwardly. Outwardly, and so what's the inward blessing? What are these ni'am batina? And the ni'am batina are the blessings that are hidden in tribulation. Right? There are blessings that Allah puts that are hidden in tribulation. So if we step back and look at the bigger picture, we have to realize that that because of what's happening in Gaza, there's something more immediate which people are waking up to, which is that everyone is now waking up to the reality of Zionism now.
Yeah.
right? Everyone's waking up to that. That's one huge lesson that's coming out of this.
Totally.
Right? They've lost the PR war. They've lost it now.
Yeah.
I think it was about 10 days or 2 weeks ago, an Israeli think tank, of all people, Israeli think tank came out and admitted, they said that of all the protests going around the world right now, 95% are pro-Palestine.
Wow.
95% are pro-Palestine, right? So they've lost that. You can see also these UN votes, how when they do so in the General Assembly, it's like 140 or 150 countries. It's Israel and US on the other side and a few other countries. Even a lot of like typical vassal states of the US, like Britain and the EU, they're abstaining.
Wow.
They're losing that, right? So that's coming to the fore. But something even greater than that's happening, and I think you've talked to some of your guests about this, which is that people are not only waking up to the reality of Israel, but they're also waking up to the reality of Palestinians, and they're saying, what is it that keeps these people going?
SubhanAllah. Right?
Like there's people, they've lost everything. They've lost their homes, they've lost their families, they have nothing. But they're smiling and they're saying, Alhamdulillah wa shukr lillah, right? They're how is that possible? They don't get, so what is that now doing? So now they think, okay, well, they're Muslims. Okay. So, and then they're going and they're trying to read a translation of the Quran. They're trying to put the pieces together. And it's happening. Like, I think it was just my friend Hazem, who's my co-author from Depression Anxiety. Like he sent me a video of a lady from America, not a Muslim, right? Blonde, blue-haired lady, not a Muslim, and she's reading a translation of the Quran, right? I'm assuming it's a pretty decent one, based on our previous conversation, right? I'll assume it's an okay one. But she put a little video out saying the Quran is helping me with my anxiety. She actually said, I have anxiety problems, and she read, I think she's reading Surah Talaq. من يتقي الله يجعل له مخرجا ويرزقه من حيث لا يحتسب, right? Like whoever fears Allah, will give him a way out. Vibrate doesn't understand. So she's quoting this ayah. She quotes some ayat in Surah Rahman, and she's almost tearing up. Like she's not even a Muslim. She's almost tearing up, and she's saying, with anxiety. She's saying with anxiety, people always tell you, okay, that you have to learn to let go. You have to learn to let go and don't fret over that thing. And then she said, but I'm reading these verses and I'm realizing, how can I let go of something that I never really had in the first place?
SubhanAllah.
How can I let go when Allah's been holding it all along? Right? How do I do that? How do I let go? And she said, so then I realized, wait a second, I'm actually part of a larger system. I'm actually part of it's like a larger, apparatus or framework. And all I can really do is act. That's all I can do, because Allah's in control. And she says, this isn't what I was taught. I always taught that it's down to you. It's always down to you, right? So if you're successful, it's because of you and your hard work. If you're not successful, it's because you're lazy and you're stupid and you're this and that. And it's like, no, it's all in Allah's hands. So she said that just gave me so much just relief.
Yeah.
Just to see that. So I think to put all of that together, I think for Muslims who are getting really, really anxious and depressed about the situation of Gaza, look at the bigger picture, see what's really happening, and then look at these people who aren't even Muslim who are now coming back, who are now coming to Allah and now reading your book, and just seeing, I mean, they're seeing things that a lot of Muslims just haven't seen. Right. There was another lady that one of my students shared with me, where she was trying to understand. She was trying to understand, like, why does Allah say, I think it was the ayat of the Baqarah, Khatam Allah al-Qulubi and the Sunnah Salihim, right? Like, why does Allah seal their hearts? She says, like, well, why does Allah seal their hearts? Like, is that not fair? But then she kept reading, and then she got to Surah Al-Taha, 20th chapter, verse 44, where Allah says to Musa and Harun when they're going to Fir'aun, right? Says, right? Like say to him with gentle words, so perhaps he would be reminded of the heat. She's like, no, wait a second. Okay, so Fir'aun did have the choice. He did have the choice.
Opportunity.
Like, yeah, he was given the opportunity. She's like, oh wow. So she saw that. And that just filled her with joy, and she's just making a video about it. She's weeping with joy, and she's realizing, wow, like this is who Allah is. This is who Allah is. So I think that's what people have to be bearing in mind, and really seeing how Allah is using these people to show us the bigger picture, And I think when we think as well about the Palestinians, especially people in Gaza as well, is again we have to realize that these people are they're shuhada, and they will have a great rank with Allah. They have a great rank with Allah. You know, my wife has shown me some clips. I've seen some clips as well online of people talking about how, you know, the dead bodies of the corpses of people over there, like they smell beautiful.
SubhanAllah.
Right? They smell beautiful because then they're shuhada. Whereas the other side, you know, I know some people call them the IDF, the IOF, is the Israeli Occupation Force, the Israeli Diaper Force. But there was a video of this was on different sources, right? It wasn't just one source, different sources. It was an Israeli doctor, and he had dead IDF soldiers in like a truck type of freezer.
Yeah.
Right. They're trying to preserve the bodies before taking them back to their families to be buried. So they're in a frozen. They're like what's the cryogenic state, right? They're being frozen. And he takes like a camera crew inside, and he said these bodies stink.
SubhanAllah. Ajib.
They stink. He said they smell terrible, and he said, like, you know, a body shouldn't smell this bad until about 6 or 7 days in. Wow. These bodies haven't even been dead for 24 hours.
Insane.
And they have this really horrible pungent smell. And again, these are signs. You know, these are signs, indications. So, yeah, that would be my
that's critical. If you're just joining us, we're talking with Shaykh Mahdi Locke of Bradford, England. Arkview.org Arabic teacher. He leads our Arabic program, not just Arabic teacher. He is the program. If you're on Instagram, hop over to YouTube Safina Society to get the whole picture. In the meantime, your point on the blessing of Allah being apparent and hidden, the tafsir of that, okay, هو الذي أسبغ عليكم نعمه ظاهرة وباطنة. Apparent and hidden. So the apparent one is the one that we see as a blessing, as is. The hidden blessing is the good result that comes out of a bad thing. Something we all agree.
Or it's hidden. It's hidden, that tribulation. You can't see it. It's hidden
inside that. Yeah. So it's something we all see as bad in our world, but Allah has a hidden blessing in that. And one of them you mentioned is Americans waking up to the Quran. So waking up to Islam, like asking, how do these Palestinians keep going? I'm looking here at a Guardian article. It was written in about 2 weeks ago. Young Americans are picking up the Quran to understand the resilience of Muslim Palestinians. And it has here a woman who started a book club on Discord, and she posts the reviews on TikTok, right? And she chit-chats about a book on TikTok. That's it. And her initial genre was romance novels. I don't know if people still read those things, where these romance, like Nancy Roberts and all those. She's out of Chicago. Okay. She's 34 years old. Then when this crisis happened, and she has a big platform on TikTok, started talking about Palestine. And then she started noticing that picture, that video of the brother whose daughter died. This is he was, you know, a Palestinian man, religious man. I think it's from the Tablighi Jama'ah of Palestine. And his daughter was brought to him. You know, she has the two poofs like this. Was brought to him, and he was just kissing her face. She's passed away. He's about to bury her. She's
he said.
Yeah. That video got so many people wondering, how is he doing this? How is he not like yelling, screaming, and going crazy? Right? So they started to pick up the Quran. Here, one lady says, I wanted to talk about the faith of Palestinian people, how it's so strong. They still find room to make it a priority to thank God. even when they have everything taken away from them. She said in an interview, this lady, her name is Megan B. Rice. Okay. She keeps posting these videos. One thing leads to the next. Eventually, she ends up a Muslim, and she posts it. Somebody, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took someone that the last person that you would ever even think of, and this person has been a means of hundreds upon thousands, if not millions, to discover the Quran, right? And really view the Quran in a positive light, okay? Because we have enough of bad press, but she has amazing, good press. So, amazing, these types of things. And I loved also Mordecai Kedar is a professor who hates Muslims and Arabs. Has devoted his life to the hatred of Muslims and Arabs. He said something that it sticks to me every day. I think about it because it's such a powerful statement, and I take it as a point of pride. Okay. He said, for these Muslims, you have to understand Allah is the main actor and they're the secondary actor. And he said, we can even say Allah is the only actor. Right?
Wow. Yeah, I think I saw that. Yeah.
And he says, whereas at the battlefield, when we go to the battlefield as Israelis, we're the only actor and we never think about God. He's not even on the field with us. But for the Muslims, he's the only actor. He says, you Israelis, you're living in a bubble if you don't understand the Muslims' relationship with God.
Is he the same one who talked about, he quoted the ayah to them as well. He said, Allah ma'as sabirin.
Yeah, that's him. He's also the same one. To show you, one of the reason I love this is because when your enemy says something about you, it's 100%
true.
Sincere, because there's no, where his bias is. It's not there's no bias. You know where his bias is. It's against you. He's the same one who was interviewed by, I think, one of the Arab press, and she said to him, what do you think of your general, or one of them equating the Palestinians to animals? Because you saw that clip early on. We're dealing with animals here, right? And he said, I totally disagree with that because that's an insult to animals, right? So you know where he stands, this guy. And he brings this out. It's so important. Now, can you talk to us about this aqidah, this belief? This is so important that in truth, Allah is the only doer of things. That is such an important part of aqidah.
Okay, so yeah, to carry on that point, just to carry on from where you said, so that Israeli academic who does not like Palestinians or Muslims, because he said, "In Allah ma'as sabirin." So he went on TV and he was saying that. He said, you don't understand that when the Palestinians say that, they quote that ayah, they sincerely, absolutely believe it. Like, if we're patient, Allah is with us. If we're patient, Allah is with us, right? And again, we they're saying we, like us on the Zionist side, we simply don't have that. So when you understand that Allah is doing things, and again, this is something I've addressed this again in a lot of my lectures on the depression anxiety book, because people fall into that trap of, because this is something that Christians tend to say in their theology. They're going to say, "Oh, how can God let this happen?"
Yeah.
Right, because they believe in a God who created the universe and then sat back and put his feet up and just watches stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas for us, no, because in Surah Al-Rahman, the 55th chapter, verse 29, Allah says, "Kulla yawmin huwa fi sha'n." Right. Every day He's in His affair, and I think it's Imam Kathir in his tafsir. He says that Allah is constantly, providing for people and answering people's du'as and taking care of people, and in other words, Allah is making things happen, right? Allah is not letting things happen. Allah is making things happen, right? You have to look at it from, you have to flip the script. It's a totally different thing. Allah's not just letting things happen. So Allah is the only actor. So, because here I'll give you an example again. If people are, even if people who are watching are not Muslim, but there was an interesting book that came out around, I think it was 2006. So there's a guy called John Gray. Another guy who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. It's another guy. It's a philosopher based in London. He wrote a book called Straw Dogs. I hope whoever's over there is okay.
No, a piece of metal fell.
Okay. All right, mashallah. All right. And so what he explained in there, what he explained in that book is, and he's arguing this purely from a secular philosophical point of view. But what he's saying is that, we in the West, we always talk about, freedom of choice and individualism, but you actually make very, very few choices in your life. Right? You don't choose who your parents are. You don't choose where you're born. You don't choose your ethnicity. You don't choose your nationality, your race, who your family members are. There's so many. And then as you're growing up, your parents make a lot of choices for you. What schools you go to, what homes you live in, and then that affects again your social circles. That affects your friends. That affects your job prospects. It affects everything. So really, what you understand, and I think this kind of ties in with that American lady I was quoting earlier. Really, when you tie down, your choices in life are really, really very limited. And your choices in life are ultimately, are you going to believe or disbelieve, and are you going to obey or disobey?
SubhanAllah.
That's really what it comes down to. That's really ultimately what it comes down to. You don't really have any influence in everything on anything else. Again, you're just part of a system. You're sort of playing a role in something that's already been laid out for you. And as you're going through it, the choice comes up again and again. Are you going to obey? Are you going to disobey? That's it. That's how it's coming across. So, and I think people also seem to. We have to keep in mind that again we're talking about the importance of slavehood to Allah, faith Allah, and slavehood to Allah, is the fact that we don't do things as Muslims. We don't do things because we're thinking of a necessary outcome, right? Let me explain. Okay, so first of all, first and foremost, right? You have to think of it this way. First and foremost, Allah has promised us. Let's start with the biggest thing of all. Allah has promised us salvation, right? This is in Surah Al-Tawbah 72. Right? Allah has promised the believing men and women paradise, gardens or Jannat, gardens in which rivers flow. So, when we pray, when we fast, when we read Quran, when we do dhikr, we do all these things, right? We are not doing any of these things in order to be saved. We are doing all these things because we are saved.
SubhanAllah.
Right? We're manifesting our gratitude to Allah. Right? And this is encapsulated beautifully in the hadith of Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, in which he was praying tahajjud. He's praying at tahajjud, and Aisha is looking at him, and his feet are cracking and becoming swollen. And he says, "Why are you doing this when Allah has forgiven you for anything you could do or could have done?" And he says, "Afalam akun abdul shukura." Right? Afala akun abdul shukura. Should I not be a grateful slave? Right? Then you take that. So that's the biggest thing of all. Then you understand with dua as well. With dua is the same thing. With dua, when we make dua to Allah, it's not about the thing we're asking for, right? We forget that. We're not asking for that money or that job or that spouse or those kids or that thing to be facilitated or that problem to be solved. What we're doing in our du'as is we're manifesting our slavehood to Allah, right? And we're rewarded for it, right? It's the ulama called du'a, mukhal ibadah. They call the du'a is the core of ibadah. It's you're manifesting your slavehood to Allah. You're putting yourself before Allah and admitting and acknowledging your helplessness. And therefore you ask Allah for anything. So again, dua is not about the thing you're asking for. It's about manifesting your slavehood to Allah and being rewarded, and you're drawing near to Allah therein, and you're being rewarded therein regardless of what happens. So if you take it again to the situation, for example, with the Palestinians and the struggling against the Israelis, you don't think of of their fighting and their intention behind their fighting as being, we're going to win necessarily.
Yeah.
It's greater than that. It's we're pleasing Allah by doing this.
Yeah.
We're pleasing Allah by doing this. We're drawing near to Allah by doing this. We're manifesting our slavehood to Allah by doing this. Right? And that's why their motto is like it's either a nasr or a shahada. Right? Either we win or we go back to Allah. And this again, that's what the Messenger of Allah said all those years ago, right? right? If we win and our deceased, but our deceased are in the paradise and their deceased are in the fire. So it's all khair if we just stop and look back at it, right? If you just take a step back and look, the whole thing is khair, right?
And we're not the ones who are going to do anything, Jerusalem, Ummah, or otherwise, but we're like one grain of sand. Each grain of sand has a job. Just do your job and don't worry about the big picture, because that Allah is the one who's going to do that in the first place.
Yeah.
And I want to draw people's attention to a secular view of this, a non-believer's view, right? To how much do you actually do? So when I was young, there was a guy who writes these clever books named Malcolm Gladwell, right?
Oh yeah, I know him. Yeah,
he's like a household name in the book world, right? And people who read. So he wrote a book called Outliers on the Greats. And I picked this up and I'm like, all right, I'm going to read this because I want to be like the greats. Whatever they do here, I'm going to do it myself. What he does is he pulls the rug from under your feet in the very first chapter, and he says essentially these people, okay, have patterns in their lives. Like he took in each sphere of things, he shows you there's a commonality in every industry. So he took hockey players, soccer players, businessmen.
Yeah, Bill Gates and Steve Jobs.
Yep, computer techs. Yeah. And he said all these factors, each category has something that was common. And that something that was common was completely random. And that's one of the reasons why they succeeded. So, for example, all the greats in tech is because they came out at the right time. They came into their
birthdays.
Years.
I remember. Yeah, it was Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, and the guy from Sun Microsystems. They were all born in the same year.
Exactly.
And therefore, when they graduated,
exactly,
it was like just as PCs were coming out.
So he put it as when PCs were just coming out, or when a certain revolution in tech happened, if you were in high school, you're too late. If you were working out of college by 1 or 2 years and working already and had a wife and kid, you're too late. But those 4 years in between, all the greats came out of there because they hit the mark, right?
Yeah.
Also, he talked about all the hockey players, all the soccer players that were great were born in the same year, same period of time.
Month.
Or
say month
in terms of months.
Hockey players of January, I remember.
Yeah. And he said basically that when they put all the players, like all the 13-year-olds, that's so random to put all the 13-year-olds, because a 13-year-old born in January is 12 months older, 11 months older than a 13-year-old born in December, right? So he ends up saying that essentially because of a random date that was picked, all these kids appeared better because they're older, right? And when you're younger, 11 months is a big deal. When you're 12 years old or 7 years old, 11 months is a huge difference in growth, in maturity, in experience. So he said that one random fact made them get the cut for the special summer camp. And because of that, it triggers off that they actually are better than the other kids. But the initial reason was so random. Point being is he's saying you can't be great because you want to be great, right? People are great in their field because of a circumstance. He even went into why the kids of New York Jews were so successful. He's like, it has nothing to do with being Jewish, nothing to do with the Torah, nothing to do with anything. It has simply to do with when these Jews came, they got into a business, the garment business, and they pulled their cousins into the business. And the garment business is you only eat what you kill. If you can't sew it and sell it, you're not eating dinner tonight, right? That ethic trickled down to the kids, right? That's why there's a tier of New York Jews that were extremely successful. It has nothing to do with, so why aren't the Wyoming Jews so successful? Why aren't Floridian Jews at the same thing? Brooklyn Jews, New York Jews, there's like a good 40 years, they're dominating every field, right? So he goes for the reason behind that. It's not, It's not Polish Jews. It's not British Jews. It's New York Jews. So he's like, what is the reason? So he goes back to Allah is the doer, and we end up having a lot less credit to our success than we think we deserve.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because I think the term he used, Mugabe, he's called the ecology of success. That's what he called it.
What is it called?
The ecology of success.
Interesting. Environment.
Like you have to look at the environment, the environmental factors. Like these people didn't just come out of nowhere. And again, I remember the example I remember the most was again the Bill Gates, Steve Jobs one, because they also had they also came from good families. They went to good schools. That's also part of it. And they had early access to the first types of PCs, and therefore they were able to do hours and hours of programming, because I think he said something like 10,000 hours was a minimum requirement if you wanted to be good at something. So Steve Jobs and Bill Gates were doing that in their teenage years, you know. So we don't really appreciate. We put so much. Again, that's what this American lady was saying in that video. She was saying, you know, we're always told that it's all on you. It's all on you, right? If you fail, it's on you, and if you succeed, it's on you. And it's like, no. Allah is, you know, again, how can you let go of something that you never had control of? And then Allah was in control of the time. And then again, that's what we had to realize. That again, Allah is the only doer. Allah is making these things happen. And Allah's victory is promised. And we also have to tell ourselves that the only inshallah about Allah's victory is whether you will be a part of it.
Subhanallah.
That's it. That's whether you will be a part of it. So that's what we have to make dua to Allah, especially. I mean, I think especially in these times, like ask Allah to make you part of, you know, the cure, part of the solution, part of the remedy to all of this. Because the remedy will come, the victory will come. Just you want Allah to make you to use you as part of it, right? However your means are, whatever you are able to do to contribute, whether it's you're raising awareness or giving dawah, getting aid over to the Palestinian people, whatever it is. But you want to make sure that Allah is using it for good, because Allah's promise is true. Allah's promise is true. So, and He's the one in control of all of this, right? Because again, I think as a warning to people, I remember a Muslim brother said to this a long time ago. I think like one of the pitfalls of when you really start digging deep into politics, and then you go into quote unquote conspiracy theories, and you go into, you know, who controls everything, who runs the world, you can fall into that trap. It's just like a satanic trap where you can start thinking that like Allah's asleep or something like this. And these people have a lot of power and control, and the reality is they don't.
I think that conspiracy theory is actually antithetical to Iman. The conspiracy theory mentality drives so much focus and attention on a cabal of, you know, evildoers who are in control. No one's in control. There's no one at the wheel here, right? Of the humans. There are no human beings can monitor this, right? And usually what happens in my theory is like this. A crisis happens. The people with resources in time will figure out how to benefit from the crisis. Because they benefited from the crisis, people will accuse them of start kicking off the crisis, right? That's one of my views on COVID, right? Is that I don't know, and I don't imagine that someone set it off on purpose with a defined goal. But I believe that it happened, and then the people with the resources said, well, how could we use this to our benefit? And then rushed, and because they have the resources, to benefit from it. Okay. Whether, you know, and then whether COVID or anything else, that's probably, and then they also get to, then they get accused of kicking the whole thing off, and they started it. But what the conspiracy theory people end up with is almost like a type of aqidah where the bad guy is the doer of things. Okay.
Exactly. They attribute divine attributes to them. Yeah.
And you're giving them way too much credit. Okay. And that their plots and plans are like unstoppable. And then you end up with somebody with a completely impractical solution to things. Right. we got to get off of everything. They're gonna, we're gonna be monitored.
We're all getting
They end
microchipped.
They end up in khawf, a state of khawf min al khalq, fear of the creation, right? That's antithetical to the deen, right? And that's why I never really get too involved with those things beyond entertainment for me, because I ask the question, what do you want me to do? Okay. Oh, you need to do this, this, and this. And I say to myself, am I doing this based on speculation or yaqeen? Or I look at it from a kalam approach. So I'm going to change the way I live. Why? On a speculation? On a theory? If this was legal evidence in Sharia, it wouldn't warrant changing my behavior. Right? So I'm going to behave as Allah told me to behave, and Allah will take care of us. Right? I'm going to look at the jama'ah of Muslims. I'm going to look at everything from a spiritual lens. And only when something becomes absolutely qat'i, absolutely certain, right, that then I'm gonna take an action. But the conspiracy theorists are all about this. But I want to go back to this silver lining, or should we say the benefit or the blessings that are hidden. Look at this. You can scroll for hours and hours and hours watching hashtag Quran Book Club. Why do I think this is important? Because a lot of born Muslims don't realize what they have. Born Muslims don't realize what they have. When you actually look at how many videos here, it's been said by The Guardian here that as of November 20th, videos on the hashtag Quran Book Club, that's the hashtag Quran Book Club, have 1.9 million views. That's November 20th. So we passed 2 million by now.
Oh, wow.
I'm scrolling here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 10. Okay. 14. It's nonstop. 18. It keeps, Seymour. Okay. All sorts of ages, ethnicities. Even a transient became Muslim. Well, after or before transitioning to a female. Okay. Hey, listen, It could happen. Well, why would we be surprised? Right? Someone who did a trans, it's very odd for us, but it's not necessarily worse than paganism, right? It's just more odd for us. But now it's evolving now, the same hashtag, to fiqh. Here's a guy, Ali the Barber, how to make salah. Right? So it's becoming a deen. You learn your whole deen on TikTok. All right. How is this? An atheist reads part of the Quran. Okay. It definitely totally is the silver lining, right? And the ni'ma baltina. It's an inner hidden blessing. I keep scrolling it. You could keep going. Like you just keep look at this. You just keep scrolling, and it's nonstop talking about the Quran. That's why Habib Omar, he used to say, Allah did not create any piece of technology except that its core purpose is to spread Tawheed.
Allahu Akbar.
Right? He said this at a time when Muslims were not in any media. Right? Muslims are now that's a pretty commonsensical thing. Any platform that comes into existence in a short matter of time, it's going to be filled with deen. So this was where we talked about the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in everything, because he's the only real doer of things. And that's something that I want everyone to think about. The phrase, the real doer of things. And this phrase is repeated in the Hanbali Aqidah course, right? Where we talk about when we ask people for something, you should never believe that they have any power. You're only asking them because Allah commands you to take means, to take the middle, to take an action. Okay. Why don't you also give us a sharh on this statement right here? Why has the Creator told us to yield to him in loyalty and faith. Okay. Why is this necessary? It reminded me of the Rabbi Manish Friedman's controversial book in the world of Judaism, and for many people know, I ended up in the rabbi rabbit hole, which I call it. Okay. Watching videos of rabbis to see what they're all about. And one of the things that kept coming up is this guy, Manish Friedman. He's a type of spiritualist, rabbi, new agey in his vibe. And he has a book, God Needs Us. And the rabbis went insane. I was like, subhanAllah, if a Muslim, an imam, ever said that on a mimbar, he will be dragged down physically from the mimbar. I would get up right away, first thing, and turn the mic off, right? I would run, because I'm in charge of the khutbah at our mosque. I would run out the back door in embarrassment of who I selected, right? This guy would be dragged off the mimbar. We'd shut the mic off right away, take the mic away from him, and escort him off the mimbar the moment he says something as crazy as this. God needs us. Okay? But the point is, when God is giving us commands and telling us to do things, the non-believing mind that doesn't know any better thinks, oh, God needs us to do this. Like the Greeks, his food is our prayers. So talk to us about this. Why is it that Allah has commanded us to be loyal to him, to have faith in him, and why test us? Why not come out and just show us his sign and call it a day?
Okay.
What is this?
Yeah.
Mashallah. We have, sorry about that. There's a guest with a very unique product here. What is this? Pomegranate juice?
Mashallah.
It's like a blood, when you give blood, it's like an IV.
Mashallah.
Yeah. Okay, Bismillah. Sorry for that interruption. Bismillah.
No, alhamdulillah, so yeah, to answer this question, why we need to yield, and this is something I touched on in the beginning, is the fact that, again, we have these, as human beings, we have these capacities, we have these abilities, also the animals don't have, especially in terms of intellect, in terms of strength, the ability to make certain devices and machines and other inventions. And if Allah is not supervising all of that, the outcome is going to be oppression. The outcome is going to be that you will have a class of slave masters and a class of enslaved. So when we all acknowledge Allah, we remove ourselves from that oppression and we treat each other justly, and therefore you do not have oppression. And we all know from the Quran that the first oppression is shirk. That is the first oppression, right? Like that's what Luqman says to his son in the shirk, the dhulm al-azim, right? That shirk is an immense oppression. And the other thing about it, because you mentioned about tests and trials and tribulations, the other thing about this is the fact that Allah is inviting every single one of us to have a relationship with him. And that relationship has to be voluntary and it has to be based on love. So let's start here. So as a starting point, there's just enough evidence in the creation for Allah's existence. There's just enough evidence, right? There isn't too little, such that people can deny it and say, no, I didn't see it. I didn't see enough proof, right? There isn't too little, but there isn't too much in the sense that people can say they were forced. People feel forced, right? So like I've said this to a few people many times. I've said, if we talk this issue, okay, well, like this man was saying, the Lord needs us, God needs us, right? Well, if that's the case, then why didn't he just have a voice booming from the sky 5 times a day? It's Fajr. Go to the masjid now. And then if anyone tries to walk away,
or make it involuntary action, like breathing.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Just force us into it, right? If he needs us and he needs our worship, he could have done that. But again, that would have been a relationship under coercion. That's what that relationship would have been, and that's not what Allah wants from us. Allah wants a voluntary relationship based on love. So that's the first thing we have to bear in mind. Is you should be able to work it out by yourself that Allah exists and He has certain expectations that He's laid out because He's my creator, and therefore I must seek out what those expectations are, and that's the whole purpose of messengership. That's why we have the messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's a really weird thing about certain people, how there are people out there who, they come to this conclusion that Allah exists. They say, well, everything has a maker, a creator, therefore the world must have a creator and we must have a creator. But then they stop there, right? It's like, that's really interesting. It's like, well, they take it further, right?
Yeah.
Like Imam Abulti says that's like the guy who's traveling at night in the desert and he finds a cave and he goes into the cave, right, to sleep for the night, and he finds like blood marks on the walls and bones of dead animals everywhere, and he says, oh yeah, this is the lair of some dangerous predator. Oh well.
SubhanAllah. Yeah, SubhanAllah.
I'll just tuck up over here and have a good night's sleep. Like, no, there's something more. Once you've drawn the conclusion that there's a creator, there's a maker, then you have to actually say, okay, has he communicated with me?
That's SubhanAllah.
Yeah, that's the next step. Okay, so he's my creator, he's my maker, he created all this, he created me. What are his expectations? Has he communicated these expectations to me? Right? That's the logical next step.
SubhanAllah.
So once you've accepted that, and you're a Muslim, and you've accepted the message, then you have to look at within the realm of trials and tribulations, and then you have to understand that this abode is a realm of blessing and ease, of blessings and hardships and so forth. And then you recognize that because you are Allah's slave, there's a command from you, there's a taklif upon you, which is that you are meant to be patient in times of hardship and grateful in times of ease. And that's what Allah wants to see from you over and over again. That's the whole point of this abode. Are you going to be patient when times are hard? And are you going to be grateful in times of ease? Or even grateful in times of both, if you think about it. So that's why all these things are happening. So the tribulations and the blessings, all of this is about manifesting your slavehood to Allah. All of it is, right? So if you take an ayah like La yukallifu Allahu nafsan illa wusaha, which is like taklif, right? It's a legal responsibility. Allah doesn't put a legal responsibility upon any soul more than it can bear. But when you think about taklif, is like there's the obvious commands, but then you have to think also just in terms of your individual circumstances. Allah is commanding you to be patient. Allah is commanding you not to get depressed. Allah is commanding you not to give up. Allah is commanding you not to despair and commit suicide. And that's all within your capacity. So it's like you have to tell yourself. It can almost be like a mantra when you find yourself in a situation where you are feeling really down in the dumps and you're almost tempted to find some means of escape for that depression or anxiety, where you think, okay, maybe I'm going to go for something unlawful or some drugs or alcohol or whatever it is. You have to say to yourself, La yukallifu Allahu nafsan illa wusaha. And that doesn't necessarily mean, I don't mean that Allah doesn't test you anymore. No, what that means is Allah's put you in a situation and you are perfectly capable of obeying him in this situation.
Yeah.
That's what you have to tell yourself. You are perfectly capable of obeying him in this situation. You don't have to resort to anything else. Just remind yourself that you're able to do that you're able to obey Allah in this situation. And that will bring you back on the right path.
I'd like to point to something that you said here, is that patience through trial and error is needed. Well, in this world, everything good comes about through a hardship. Like a baby is not born except through an extreme hardship from the mother. Even the greatest pleasure that two people can have takes physical effort, right? Which is why they're tired afterwards. Okay, they're like exhausted after the fact. Everything good, everything great in this world, it comes through a hardship. Tribulations are also like the birth. It's like the birth pains, okay, the labor pains of ma'rifah.
Yeah,
you get to discover so much about yourself and about Allah and about the creation through something which we usually call a hardship. You discover much less through pleasure. You could discover something like you could see how generous Allah is with us, How amazing is the creation? There's like how many fruits there are and what you could do with these fruits, right? You could discover a lot of things. So we're not saying that pleasure is never a source of marifa. It is. But pain, it's a greater source of marifa. Marifa meaning knowledge, direct knowledge about Allah himself, about Islam. For example, I think most Islamic gender laws that were questioned and just looked at as like, why do they even exist? All disappeared after the Me Too movement. No one doubts those rules anymore. Everyone sees why they exist, right?
Yeah.
You guys went on living, had no law, and you ended up with this crisis, right? And so we look at these things. Pain is almost like the labor of marifa. Someone, of course, the atheists and all those are going to always go back and say, well, why does God need us to suffer in order to learn? Why can't he teach us the same knowledge through pleasure?
That would be paradise then.
Yeah,
So
that's a definition. The question, the premise here, the hidden premise, the snuck premise that you're not even aware of, is you have an entitled attitude. You believe you are entitled to pleasure at all times. Why are you entitled to that? Right? You're not entitled to that. There's another snuck premise that pleasure could exist at all the time.
But also
can't be in
the
pleasure all the time.
Arab principle, like the Arabs will say, "Bil-al-badi tu'raf al-ashya," right? Like it's by opposites things are known.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? So how do you know what pleasure is? You don't know what pain is.
Yeah.
Like that's so. That's what causes us to appreciate it all. Right?
Yep.
We appreciate the good times because we've been through the bad times.
I want
Right.
to close with this point too that you made. Before you get rid of the dog in the backyard, you got to get rid of the dog in the front
house.
In the house. Before you get rid of the dog in the house, you got to get rid of the dog in your heart.
In the heart.
And I'll tell you, going through Twitter and X and talking to people and seeing comments, of course, sometimes they're like attacks, right? One of the things that I found to be one of the most pointed, accurate, and correct attacks is they said, why are you guys whining? You guys got 50 Islamic countries, right? Where are they? That points to the dog in the house. Right? There could not possibly be a dog outside attacking the house if there is no dog in the house, right? If these countries were upright from the beginning and they even believed in Islam, first you wouldn't have 50 countries. There'd be like 2 because they'd erase all the borders between them and figure it out. They'd make an EU version, right? They'd make an Islamic Union, and a country is merely only for its local laws. That's it, because of its language and all that. But the passport, the currency, the big things, the military, you'd have like a sub-military, and you'd have the IU military, right? And then you have an IU currency, and you'd have an IU passport. Okay, that's all you really need. That's one, and then one head of the IU, he monitors these 3 things only. As for the local roads and township stuff, that's your own country does that. That's how it would operate. But the dog outside the house only exists because there's a dog inside the house.
Yep.
The dog inside the house would never have existed if there is not that mini pharaoh inside the hearts of enough Muslims, right? That cause these rulers to be our rulers. Right? Minkum man yuwalla alaykum. Your ruler's just nothing but one of you.
Yeah.
He's no different than your average guy. In every situation, your ruler reflects the heart of the average guy. So Bob Mugabe, remember Bob Mugabe? Robert Mugabe, right?
Yeah, the dictator of Zimbabwe, yeah.
The dictator of Zimbabwe. They said to him, you want American aid? He needs American money now. All right, elections, democratic elections. Wait a second, sounds like almost like Aslim Teslam, right?
Yeah.
If have elections, you'll get our money. All right. But so he said, fine, we'll get elections. A young, nice, polished Zimbabwean guy goes and wins. Okay. And Mugabe was asked, okay, are you going to give a concession? He said, no, I'm not conceding, right? And they're like, well, you lost, though. He said, did I really lose? He won with a pen, and I have a gun, right? he got more people to click off a box, but I got all the military. How did I lose? That's his world. So I can tell you right now, the average guy in Zimbabwe, right, something about him, there's some feature, and this, some people say, oh, don't blame the victim. Victims aren't always flawless. There may be sometimes a reason you're a victim. I'll say it, forget Zimbabwe, so no one says it. I'll say it about Egypt, my own country, okay? We have no discipline. We have no work ethic. The average guy has none of this stuff. The average guy has a big ego. He could be just wearing his training pants and sleeping till 12, 11 a.m. and does nothing for 3 hours and says he worked, right? Big ego, right? So how are you going to get a great leader when these are the regular people? So that line, I think, is so important. And it's a trickle effect. It's a domino effect. And I think the dog on the outside must, the introspection must go to the dog in the house, quickly to the dog in the heart. And if you start fixing, if individuals have a cultural revolution amongst them, cultural, spiritual revolution amongst them, by nature, the leaders will either buy into it or they'll be on the outside. And they'll be on the outs. They'll bounce out. They'll be removed somehow. But that's really what our ummah needs. A cultural, spiritual awakening. Culture. When I say cultural, I mean of the people, not a government top down. It got to be of the people, from the culture of the society. A culture of Iman has to be renewed. Unfortunately, I have to say, like, what has done this in most nations in the past is war. Is getting obliterated. And seeing your blood spilled so much that you start making you think, we got to change.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah.
Someone's got to give.
We kept you for a long period of time. I want to say Jazakallahu khairan. Thank you very much. And we look forward to having you on the regular, because Shaykh Mahdi Locke is in constant translations of the work of Shaykh Muhammad Sha'rawi.
Bulti.
Shaykh Muhammad Saeed Ramadan Bulti. Shaykh
and others are coming. I've got others in the pipeline.
And others.
He's the main one. Yeah.
But it's all Quran, Tawheed, and Ma'rifah of Allah.
And fiqh. And fiqh. There's a few things, yeah.
And Shafi'i fiqh.
Yeah.
Really, truly, the result of that is so much sakina comes, right, from the study of Tawheed, study of Quran, and their angle of things. The Sheikh Saeed's systematic approach, Sheikh Muhammad Mitwalli al-Sha'rawi's almost nafatat, you could say, his like observations about the verses. It brings you a lot of Tawheed. It brings you a lot of spiritual sukoon. And I wish we could go longer, but today we got to run. So Jazakallah khairan for coming on. And we will see you soon again, inshallah. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Remember, the applications will open up for the next semester soon to have to be a student of Shaykh Mahdi Locke through Arkview's Arabic program. With that, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we did want to stay longer, but we've got to go. What do you have, a new Shahada? Huh? All right, let's take this new Shahada before we log off. Come. Bismillah. Lorenzo, welcome. Alicia's been telling me all about you. MashaAllah. Cometh. Come here, take a seat here. All right. How are you?
NBF, guys.
Very good, very good, very good. All right, so how this is something very important I want to share with everyone. Sometimes there's a new Muslim and someone makes a schedule for them to come and take their Shahada. We're actually not allowed to do that. You have to give the Shahada right away. Why? Because it's contentment with disbelief. And we did that. You called someone recently. As soon as I got the message, I said, why do you have to come to me to give someone Shahada? This is not a priesthood here, right? I want to tell anybody out there, you don't even need anybody to give you Shahada. Say, I believe there's one God, no God but Allah, none worthy of worship but Allah, Muhammad is his messenger. That's it. You're a Muslim. You don't need a priest. You don't need an imam. You don't need a big ceremony. You do it yourself between you and Allah, and then all you need is witnesses. Hey guys, I'm new. I just want to tell you guys, I took Shahada. That's it. Right? Some people like this. You won't believe this. A girl was going to marry a guy. They said, oh, we need to give you Shahada. I said, all right, come, take the Shahada. Because she's Muslim, he wasn't a Muslim. I said, all right, meet me at the masjid after Dhuhr. You know, after Dhuhr in the masjid is like 1:30. There's no one in the masjid except the guys who are working, pray Dhuhr, and leave. So like, all right, let's take the Shahada. They're like, wait a second. They came out decked out. Like, you think this is like a Christian, like, what do they call it? The communion or something, right? And like, where are all the people? I was like, what do you care about all the people here? You're coming to believe in Allah. What's your business with the people? They got so upset the girls left, right? Never took the Shahada. I'm like, what do you want, a party or something, right? I wasn't sincere in the first place, right? Because they went and they wanted to impress the guy with a big party. Look how big all this party is. It's not communion. It's not a baptism, right? It's far greater in meaning, but more humble in its reality. At any moment, you want to pay your dues to Allah Ta'ala, you just do it. If anyone calls you, say, I want to take the Shahada, give them the Shahada right now. Shahada can be in Arabic or English. Brother Salman, alhamdulillah, I gave it to you, the Shahada on the phone, but let's do it again right here, inshallah. Just for the sake of the witnesses and everybody else. Mm-hmm. All right, repeat after me. I bear witness, that there is none worthy of worship, but Allah. And that Muhammad is his last and final messenger. Ashhadu anna la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. Takbir. Allahu Akbar. Takbir. Allahu Akbar. All right, congratulations, my brother. And although I got to run, these gentlemen will take care of you, inshallah, today. So we look forward to having you around. You live around here?
Yeah, I'm close to the area.
Okay, good. Yeah. So we'll be seeing you. We do have a couple days off because of the winter break, but these guys will be in touch with you, inshallah, and we'll be in constant contact. Get your phone number real quick. Where's the pens here? Here, write your phone number real quick right here. There you go. All right, everyone. Jazakumullahu khairan. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. I'll see you all tomorrow بإذن الله. السلام عليكم.
Kalbe şifa